Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you all are doing fantastic out there. If you have not done so already, what are you waiting for? Sign up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group and get the inside scoop on all things BYU sports. And best part is, it's just $5 a month to be a part of the group. And you also get a 14-day free trial, 2 full weeks, half a month, to see if it's the right option for you guys. Click the link in the show notes below. Join us today and be a part of the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. All right. Before we go on today's show, reading up on the House settlement, because it really is a big deal in the college sports universe. Everything kind of rides on if Judge Claudia Wilkin out there in Oakland, California is going to finally put the rubber stamp on the House settlement and agree to the terms as it stands. Well, as we continue to wait for that, because the reports come out, I think it was Pete Thamel who said that there was expecting to be resolution this week on the House settlement. The bigger point is that there are 2 key developments here from himself as well as Ross Dellinger that could really change the feel of college sports. And we've already seen the professionalization of college football really underway, and it's continuing to just kind of take off at an astronomical rate. Well, you want to talk about one major change that could be coming in this is that they're going to create a CEO of what they're calling the College Sports Commission, which would be empowered to have, quote, the final say in doling out punishments and deciding when rules have been violated, according to sources, a level of singular power that never existed during the NCAA's era of struggling to enforce its rules, unquote. That comes from the Pete Thamel report on ESPN.com. This CEO is, in fact, going to be essentially what Roger Goodell is for the NFL, what Rob Manfred is for Major League Baseball, what Adam Silver is for the NBA on down the line, a commissioner of college football. You want to talk about the professionalization of this sport? Yeah, let's get commissioners involved who are judge, jury, and executioner here. That's the other thing about this. This CEO, by the way, is expected to be hired quickly after the House settlement is finalized and is spearheaded by the 4 commissioners from the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC. So Brett Yormark is among those who are helping hire this person. And this person is supposed to be installed by the time that the House settlement is supposed to take effect, which is, by the way, July 1st. We're less than a month and a half away from all this taking place. And they're going to have this person who's probably going to make 7 figures in place. They're going to empower them to enforce the rules that the House settlement is going to install in high-level college football. And also, it is going to make essentially a new pact here. As Ross Dellinger points out, that the power conferences have drafted a contract. Ooh, we love contracts, baby. Legalese. You know what's undefeated in college sports? Legal fees and lawyers. Their billable hours are always undefeated. But they say this contract would bind schools to the new enforcement rules in college football and require them to waive the right to sue over decisions, sources tell Yahoo Sports, who Ross Dellinger writes for. Schools not signing may risk conference eviction. In other words, they are threatening to kick you out of your conference if you do not sign on the dotted line that say, hey, you are waiving the right to challenge us on the rulings we make on your behalf, or when you run when you run afoul of the rules that we have here. They also say this: the document described as a, quote, affiliation or, quote, membership agreement is not finalized, but a draft of the contract has been distributed to dozens of school presidents, general counsel, and athletic directors, some of whom have pushed back against some of the concepts, which are now being refined. Yeah. Try kicking us out of the Power Four. That's one of the things I'm sure they pushed back on. It also says this: the document is meant to be signed by all 70-plus Power Conference schools, as well as others opting into the settlement, as a way to bind the group and provide stability around the enforcement of rules, including, quote, NIL Go, which is the clearinghouse, which is obviously going to regulate NIL payments and the like, and the LBI cap management system, which is supposed to help manage the $20.5 million revenue share from these schools. Your head's probably spinning at this point, but understand this, everybody. There are multiple state laws, including Tennessee, that has an NIL law on its books that say that anything the NCAA or college football try to do is superseded by state law in the state of Tennessee, and they can do whatever they want with regards to NIL, and nobody can challenge that. Now college football is turning around and trying to get Tennessee, as well as the other Power Conference schools, including your beloved BYU Cougars, to sign away their rights. In essence, from my vantage point, and I'm not a legal expert, but this screams to me, this is the way of NCAA getting essentially an antitrust agreement without, actually an antitrust agreement from the federal government, which they have sought. They have obviously talked to the House of Representatives and the Senate, and there have been proposals on both floors of Congress, or both houses of Congress, or in both houses of Congress, to use the right term, about this, but no traction has been made on the national level. We have a hodgepodge of state laws. BYU is in the state of Utah, obviously, and other states around the union have different laws in effect that either, in some cases, allow schools to directly pay their athletes, much like Tennessee's law allows. They allow the schools to pay their athletes directly. That's just what the law says. There are other laws in other states that say you can't do that. What does this all sound like to you guys that are still with me here? This sounds a whole lot like there's going to be a whole lot of lawsuits. There's going to be a whole lot of lawyers continuing to make a lot of money with their billable hours, and legal challenges are absolutely afoot here. You are asking member schools to bind themselves to an agreement to play by the rules in a sport and in a college environment that for decades, going back to the very earliest days of college football, that very few have actually played by the rules. The stories of bagmen, the stories of athletes switching alliances in the early days of college football on a whim, all of that has been going on for decades, if not centuries at this point. And you expect right now in 2025, in the next, let's say, month and a half ahead of the House settlement taking effect on July 1, you expect all these high-level programs with hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars under their control with regards to media rights and the like, to sign on a dotted line that says, hey, yeah, we're going to play by the rules here. Good luck. I will say this in defense of BYU. BYU, they will play by the rules. They will play by whatever rules of the game are. And that's actually irked some people, because when the rules changed and actually advantaged BYU, all of a sudden allegations of tampering came about by other fan bases. The rules being what they are, BYU will always abide by them. That's something that BYU has been very, very clear about from the get-go when it came to this NIL era. But you can't tell me that the SEC, the Big Ten, ACC, and other Big 12 schools are going to look at those rules, say, you know what? Yeah, we're totally okay with this. Let's sign on right away. Good luck with that. I just don't see it happening, because it doesn't feel like it is in anybody's best interest to just sign off and sign away essentially your rights to control your future. And that's the other thing about this. General counsels, these schools themselves, they are going to fight this tooth and nail, because they want to still control what they can control. And what you can do that is they keep the legal option in your back pocket to take it to the courts if it doesn't go in your favor. I think this is going to be a very, very hard sell for the NCAA to make. And if they pull it off, more power to them. But at the same time, I do not see this going the way that they envision it going, but maybe it does. And maybe everybody starts to get along and it's all hunky-dory, and maybe everybody does play by the rules, but history suggests otherwise. So stay tuned. Should be a very interesting deal. You know what I just noticed doing this? I did not change the rundown of today's show. So you got yesterday's rundown. If you're watching this on YouTube, probably going, hey, this says this about BYU's good team to bet the over on. What Big 12 revenue's down? It's stuff from yesterday. So if you're an everydayer, go back and watch the podcast. If you missed it yesterday, I'll actually throw up the new rundown while we're doing this live. But that was a faux pas on my part. I've done it from time to time here, but I caught it, in the final 30 seconds of the show. So give me some credit. But as always, a big thank you to all of you guys for your support of the podcast. Truthfully, you guys are what makes this go around, makes it worth my while to do this literally every single day. And as always, continue to subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your family and friends, spread the good word about this podcast. It's on-demand BYU content whenever you want it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And once again, as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen today. And once again, also, thank you to all of you who are everydayers right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.